Hey guys, welcome back. So now the Avengers 4 trailer finally dropped today, and we got the title and everything, Avengers Endgame. So I just wanted to talk about it real quick, some of the things we'd seen, what they can mean, and just my general thoughts. Of which I have to say, like when they showed the title and they showed the words coming back together, and maybe this is a stretch, but to me it just felt like a bit of foreshadowing, because we do know this film does have to bring people back. But I'm also glad that this trailer, it just provided that reminder of the devastation, that feeling of defeat, loss, and then at the very end just a glimmer of hope. But alright, just get into what we saw, and starting with Tony. And even though it seems that he's out here by himself, we do know that after that battle on Titan that him and Nebula were the only two left, and I'm pretty sure that where we see him making that recording for Pepper, that Nebula is also on the ship, but it's likely that Tony just asked for a moment alone so he could leave the message. But we do know Nebula is on that ship with him because we see her in the trailer in what appears to be her coming in after he's left the message, or just seeing him there in a chair unresponsive. And just from seeing that, I feel like there's gonna be a lot of moments in this film that really pull on your heartstrings, but also with the fact that they're pretty much stranded in space, and it's likely that Tony has used up all of his nanotech by having a large amount of it either damaged or discarded on Titan, and with him being out of food and water for the past 4 days, and soon to be out of oxygen, it has me thinking like one of three things, actually a little bit more than that, because one, with Nebula also here, she can go a lot longer than Tony without food or water, and she does eat, and I'm sure she uses chi charging or something for her cybernetic enhancements. But for her, imminent death isn't as critical. Two, as much as it may seem that Tony's gonna die out here, I don't think he's gonna die out here, because that just wouldn't make sense. And you know, the trailer wants you to think that. It wants you to think that he does. But if you think about it, if he did, then everything that Doctor Strange had said about Tony staying alive, it just wouldn't have made sense. And he would have handed over the time stone just to have Tony die in space. But rather, I do believe through some intercepted transmission of some sort, or perhaps even passing by Titan, or even investigating Titan after returning to Earth, that at this point Captain Marvel is my first guess at bringing Tony and Nebula to Earth, uniting them with the remaining members of the Avengers. And to even go a step further with that, because we know from Avengers Infinity War when Peter was going out the atmosphere, we know that the Iron Man suits can survive in space. And because of that, I'll even throw out there that there's a chance that Pepper Potts could come for Tony using her rescue armor. And I've previously done a video on the rescue armor and its origin and its functionality, and I got a link in the description for that if you want to check that out as well. But I just gotta say, it is crazy seeing this come full circle from the Avengers, the first movie, where he flew the missile into the Chitauri, to Iron Man 3, seeing him deal with PTSD, and now in Avengers 4, seeing him actually live out that fear of facing death in space. Like, it really sets the tone for this movie, like this is it. And so as far as the rest of the Avengers that are on Earth, there's a few things running through my mind about this. But first and foremost, man, seeing Captain America cry, this is going to be tough. And even though we see him later on in the trailer wearing the suit from Captain America Winter Soldier, you can tell that emotionally he's gone to a place of where at first he just wanted to do what was right. And that was the Steve Rogers from Captain America the First Avenger. But after everything that's taken place between the personal loss, the loss of Peggy Carter, him losing the war, him losing Bucky again, it's like he's reached a place to where not only does he have tremendous survivor's guilt, but also given the chance to lay down on the wire to bring everyone else back, he'd do it.
You're not the guy to make the sacrifice play, to lay down on a wire and let the other guy crawl over you.
I think I would just cut the wire.
Always a way out.
And as of right now, I'm really sticking with that old theory of it will come down to that. And I think it was in my initial review of Avengers Infinity War where I talked about the curse of the time stone and Thor mentioning Asgard's survivors, but also the idea of Tony Stark getting all the Infinity Stones and needing to sacrifice someone he loves in order to get the Soul Stone. And if that still happens, I just think it would be incredible to see them go back to that conversation between Tony and Cap, where Tony actually wants to give his life and lay down on the wire, and Cap is like, no, you should cut it. And that's where Steve tells Tony to let Steve die, because of after everything they've been through with Captain America Civil War and Steve keeping the secret of Bucky killing his parents, and at this moment just the thought of Steve allowing Tony to die, like Steve just can't let it happen. And I also believe this takes place a little bit further in the future as well, so there may be a child for Tony in the picture as well. But as far as getting to the rest of the Avengers, I'm sure there's a time gap somewhere in here, because initially when Romanoff is talking to the others and they're pretty much assessing everything, we see the displays on the screen and they're showing the faces of Avengers that are missing, not dead, not confirmed dead, but missing. And for some, this may be a speculation that these are all people gone in the snap, but for one, we know that Scott Lang is not the case. And for Shuri, who is also missing, but also she was one of those who, a while back when the Russo brothers confirmed who died and who didn't, they were pretty open about it for the most part as far as who did and who didn't, but when it came to Shuri, they refused to give a definite answer. And I got a link down in the description for that video in case you want to go back and just get a little refresher. But as for right now, I'm still holding on to the possibility that she's still alive, and rather than her being gone, much like Clint, who we finally see going full Ronin. But I believe that Shuri isn't dead, but rather she's gone on her own mission to bring her brother back, and I kind of feel like that needs to be a whole video in itself. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But where we see Romanoff catching up with Clint, it reminds me a lot of Age of Ultron, when I believe it was Tony who kind of joked around with Clint after Ultron had taken Romanoff, telling Clint, can't you do like some old school spy stuff and figure out where she's at? And not to say that Clint left a message for her, but really just building off of the premise of the history between these two, that they know how to find each other, which is a testament not just to their rapport, but also to them individually being just that good. But going forward, man, when we get to Thor, the first thing that goes through my mind is just the conversation that he had with Rocket on their way to Nebular, talking about everything that he's lost and how Thanos has never fought him twice. Like, I just couldn't imagine the conversation with him and Rocket after all of this, because at this point there's really not a conversation to have, but rather just a lot of silence and grieving after that devastational loss. But still, I think it was cool to see Thor here, especially with the different color eyes. And I'm not gonna front, when I seen the trailer, I was just waiting for Boss Logic to get his hands on this, because Thor straight up looked like he was getting ready to spit some bars. So when I seen Boss Logic post this with the caption, he's nervous, but on the surface he looks calm and ready, I was just like, 8 Mile, perfect. Thank you, Boss Logic, you are the true MVP. Like, he's wearing the exact same skull cap, it's crazy. But going forward, I think this scene between Black Widow and Captain America is one of the later scenes in the film that we're seeing in the trailer, and that is taking place after Scott Lang showed up at the front gate with Lewis's van, which we know from Ant-Man and the Wasp happens to have a quantum tunnel in the back, even though we have no clue of how he got out of there. But with him pulling up, it's very likely that he found a way out by either meeting someone in the quantum realm, or perhaps even getting help from Ghost and Bill Foster if they're still alive, and if so, being that they're the only two who knew about Scott going into the quantum realm before he got stuck, it's likely that they went to the rooftop to check on him because they needed the healing particles for Ghost, and maybe Tony did die in space and he brought back a couple extra for him, but I doubt it. But with him being in the quantum realm getting those healing particles for Ghost, and that being the reason he was there, it's likely that Bill Foster and or Ghost went there to check on him on the rooftop, and the two of them together figured out how to pull him back. And my last theory for him coming back would be with him being in the quantum realm and it messing with his mind, possibly it bringing back some memories that belong to Janet, and he uses those to find his way out. And either way, I do believe that is from there that after that point they come with the plan, Cap suits back up, and before they go in pursuit of whatever said plan may be, that's when Cap and Romanoff have the conversation that hints to us that it is an extravagant plan. And we get that hint when Widow tries to ensure Cap that this is gonna work, and Cap says that he believes that it will, and that belief is standing solely on the premise that he doesn't know what he'll do if it doesn't. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And I do want to add that the recording that Tony was making in the beginning of the trailer, I do believe that this was a recording that will be seen later on. And the way that it's done with like the full body scan, it does give us a bit of a hint to the possibility of us getting our full Tony hologram either in this film or somewhere down the line. And we may see examples of it later on in the rescue armor. But as far as Tony and Nebula, and I'm sure they made their attempts to try to reach Earth or really anyone possible. And this is where Tony went to make this message separating from Nebula, who probably was still making her attempts to reach someone, but because those messages can't reach Earth, Captain Marvel either picks them up on her way to Earth, or she's able to intercept them with the technology of the pager that reached her from Earth to Hala or wherever she was at the time. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Those are just my thoughts, impressions. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll do it again in the next one. Alright, later.